the Climate Action Campaign, and Climate Power. I am so excited to kick off this event and to introduce our truly incredible lineup of climate champions. But first, this is a rally, a socially distant one, of course, so we want to make crystal clear and very sure that every single member of Congress hears us loud and clear. So I'm going to ask you all, what do we want? And you're going to say, climate action. And I'm going to say, when do we want it? And you're going to say, now. Ready? What do we want? When do we want it? Now. What do we want? When do we want it? Now. One more time, even louder. What do we want? When do we want it? Now. Thank you. It is so important that all of us are raising our voices right now because this is truly code red for humanity. Our nation is reeling from deadly and devastating floods, storms, heat, and fires. All of this is coupled with long-standing racial and environmental injustice and economic inequality. It could not be more important or more urgent that Congress take action on climate at the scale that science and justice require. Fortunately, the Build Back Better Act can and must do just that. That's why we are all in, working closely with our partners, environmental justice leaders, labor unions, the private sector, elected officials at every level of government, and people in every state and every district in this country who strongly support transformational investments in clean energy jobs and justice. We're running campaigns unlike we've ever run before, all in service of making sure that we meet the climate test, that we cut climate emissions in half by 2030, and then we transition to 100% clean energy once and for all. So I know everybody here is absolutely determined to make once-in-a-generation progress. We have an excellent lineup of speakers. I'm going to introduce them after we hear from our first incredible speaker, the chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which could not be more important. Chairman DeFazio represents the great state of Oregon and centers clean energy, climate, and clean water at every step. Thank you so much, Chairman DeFazio.
I said I could take this off. Good. Okay. Thank you for being here today. You know, we're probably already, we are past a tipping point, so the actions we take now are absolutely critical so that things don't get worse. Build Back Better is a massive step toward dealing with fossil fuel pollution in the United States. I chair the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. When we were doing my bill on the floor, the INVEST Act, the Northwest was under something called a heat dome. And the scientists said it was a once in 1,000 year occurrence and it couldn't have happened without climate change. People died in the heat. But they said if we don't take dramatic action, that will be a once in 5 or 10 year event in the Pacific Northwest. The glaciers are melting. The forests are burning. You know, we're in an unprecedented drought. Crops shriveled. On the ground and in the trees during this climate dome. And then we're debating the bill on the floor, and my Republican colleagues are saying, climate doesn't belong in a transportation bill. I said, no, transportation is the single largest cause of fossil fuel pollution in the United States of America, and if we don't deal with carbon pollution from transportation, then we're not dealing with climate change. In this country. I tried to, they can't use the word climate change, so I tried something else. I said, how about a business case? I held a hearing on the business case for electrification of the National Highway Network. Even had Fred Smith, who's a quite conservative guy, runs FedEx. He came in and tested. They were shocked. There's Fred Smith. What's he doing here? FedEx is going all electric by 2035, including their semi-tractor trailers. And, and GM is going all electric. And I said, okay, where are you going to charge? Well, we don't know. The federal government needs to make that investment. So a key part of the transportation effort that we're doing here is electrification of the National Highway Network. And then I'm also, unfortunately, the bill we passed in the House is not the bill, the bipartisan bill, but we're fighting back. They stripped out my provision to have a mandatory cap in every state on fossil fuel pollution from transportation. But I'm coming back with a $4 billion program to have very strong state and local incentives to assist all our communities to help deal with fossil fuel pollution and transportation. We're also going to put $10 billion more into transit to help people get out of their cars, and this program will be targeted toward access to affordable housing for people. We have, Tiernan referenced the equity issue. We have $4 billion that we're going to do for the equity issue, for communities that have been divided by the freeway mania in the United States of America. In fact, they're trying to do another one down in South Carolina right now that'll divide yet another black community in half. We're going to fight that. This administration doesn't want to do those things anymore, and we need to change our policies so we don't go on a freeway building mania. We need to use transit. I'm putting $10 billion more into high-speed rail. We've got to get people, again, give them alternatives. If we can have higher speed or high-speed rail to New York and in other parts of the country, we can get people out of commuter airplanes. And it's way, way, way more efficient to put people in trains or mass transit than to fly. But we're not ignoring aviation because it's not going away in my bill. We're putting $1 billion into sustainable aviation fuel development. And we're also dealing with ports and port pollution, which is another social equity issue. There's a lot of low-income people living near and around our ports like L.A., Long Beach, and others. It's long overdue to electrify those ports and deal with the pollution in those areas. This is a multi-pronged approach. And then, of course, the biggest things in Build Back Better are the massive, massive investments in renewable energy across the United States of America that we're going to be making, and the reinforcement of the grid so we can wield that power. It doesn't do a whole hell of a lot of good to electrify the national highway network, and have someone in an EV and charge it off a coal plant. We got to be charging them off of renewable energy, renewable power. We can do that, but we won't do it, and we can't get it done if we don't pass Build Back Better, if we don't pass reconciliation here in D.C. in the next few weeks, and that's why you're here. This is an absolutely critical, perhaps our last chance to save even worse and even more irrevocable harm to our country and the planet. So what do we want? Louder. What do we want? Climate action. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate action. When do we want it? Now.
Wow, Chairman DeFazio, thank you so much for your powerful words. Thank you for your excellent chanting. And thank you for your tireless leadership. And now we are going to hear from a true champion for climate, jobs, and justice in the Senate. She represents the great state of Minnesota. We're so thrilled that she's here, and we are so grateful for her tireless leadership and the incredible work that she and her staff are putting in round the clock on the Clean Energy Performance Plan. Senator Tina Smith, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you ready finally to make progress on climate action? Not next year, not 2 years from now, but this year. Are you ready to do it? Well, listen, I am so grateful to Tiernan and our friends at LCV and to Climate Power and to Climate Action Campaign and to my colleagues who are here today. And I am particularly grateful to the activists and the organizers in my home state of Minnesota and all over this country who are making sure that this moment does not waste, that we do not allow this point in time where we can truly make progress to just get frittered away. And I have to tell you, in my home state of Minnesota, you do not need to explain to people about the urgent need to take action on climate. The farmers in northern Minnesota can see it in their drought-stricken fields. The forest fires, the historic forest fires in northern Minnesota, which caused the boundary waters to be closed for portions of the peak season. Not to mention the incredible Gooseberry Falls that has slowed to a trickle because of the drought. Minnesotans, they also understand that strong climate action is not about sacrifice, it is about opportunity. It is about creating innovative new ways of not only powering our country, but of being on the forefront of investment and innovation. And this is why I say when it comes to a clean energy transition, we can lead or we can follow. and I want us to lead. Now, what do we do, though? What do we do right now? We cannot waste this moment. There is too much at stake. And it is essential, it is required that the Democrats' budget bill that we are going to move through Congress include strong, powerful climate provisions. This is not an option. This is a necessity. And it is key to getting this done is getting the Clean Electricity Standard, Clean Electricity Payment Plan, getting the Clean Electricity Plan done. I want to thank my colleagues who have been working so hard on this in both the House and the Senate, and particularly my colleague, Senator Ben Ray Lujan, who started this work when he was in the United States House. The Clean Electricity Plan is a powerful, progressive tool to dramatically expand clean electricity over the next 10 years and to accelerate this transition to clean power while keeping utility rates low and making sure that we still have a resilient grid. And we can do all of this. This does not require a great sacrifice. This is about the opportunities ahead of us. So if you're wondering, what does this mean for jobs? What does this mean for what happens with our economy? The answer is that it is huge. A report that came out just last week showed us that if we pursue the Clean Electricity Plan along with the other incredibly strong policies that my colleagues are working on, if we do this, it means net 8 million new jobs in this country. 8 million new jobs. It means almost $1 trillion of additional economic action all over the state. And I'm not just talking about California and New York and Oregon, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm talking about opportunity that is created in rural parts of this country because renewable energy is rural energy. So, if you care about good union jobs, if you care about environmental justice, if you care about putting the United States on the forefront of innovation and economic competitiveness, if you care about taking strong action to arrest the worst impacts of climate change, like I do, so that my grandsons will know snow in Minnesota. If you care about all of these things, we must seize this moment. We must take action now. We must pass our strong, powerful climate energy proposals. And I ask you to join with us in making sure that we get this done. Are you with us? Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for support. Let's get it done.
Thank you so much, Senator Smith. As a Minnesotan by marriage, I'm particularly grateful to you for your incredible leadership, and we are so fortunate to be joined by another awesome leader for climate action, for clean water, for clean air in Wisconsin and all across this country. Senator Tammy Baldwin, thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. All right. It says right on the podium, this is a code red for climate. We need climate action right now, and I couldn't be happier to be able to join you today to really underscore that. I want to thank Climate Power, the League of Conservation Voters, the Climate Action Campaign, all for inviting me here today, and for all of you to be here and there speaking out. And so I'm also honored to be joined by some of my colleagues in the Congress who have been incredible leaders on this issue. This moment, this very moment in history requires a major federal investment to defeat the climate crisis, to create millions of jobs, and those jobs will be good-paying union jobs. It requires federal leadership to deliver on environmental justice and to build back better. Now, I'm proud to support our budget resolution that we passed a few weeks back, which would make the most significant investment in tackling the climate crisis in our nation's history. Not only would it put America on a path to meet President Biden's climate change goals of 80% clean electricity and 50% economy-wide carbon emissions reductions by the year 2030. But it also invests in American industry, infrastructure, and agriculture to create jobs and restore our manufacturing competitiveness. We have the opportunity to get millions of people back to work in a new clean energy and union jobs. Our country needs builders, they need roofers, they need engineers, electricians, accountants, plumbers, pipe fitters, administrators, researchers, and teachers, all of whom will be required to create a cleaner, safer, and healthier America. The Build Back Better Act will help us create those positions and get to work. Last week, while I was home in Wisconsin, I heard from people in all corners of our state. I put on well over 2,000 miles in the vehicle, and I was seeing so much evidence of the way climate change has challenged and in some cases devastated parts of my state. I met with farmers who have seen the devastating impacts of flooding and too many communities that have had to absolutely rebuild and relocate parts of the community because of frequent extreme rain events. We're talking 12, 14 inches in just a matter of hours. Regardless of where you work or what you do, climate change impacts you. As the UN Secretary General said, this is a code red for humanity. And as many others have said, there's no planet B. Our moment is now. Our moment is now, and we must seize it. Building a nation that's powered by clean energy, solar energy, wind energy, other forms of clean energy will bring jobs to every part of our nation, and it will lower energy costs and make the grid more reliable during extreme weather events. What I pledge to you is to keep working with my colleagues to pass the Build Back Better Act. And what I know your presence here means today is that you're with us fighting every day too. We know that passage of the Build Back Better Act is our way to create a brighter future for our entire planet. The next generation is counting on us. We won't let them down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Baldwin. The next generation is absolutely counting us. On behalf of my children, on behalf of all the young people and all the kids here, thank you, all of you, for coming here. We are all in with you at every step. Now we're going to go back to the House and hear from someone who has been fighting for clean energy for literally his entire career, and I think has single-handedly done more to make FERC a household name this summer than anyone else, Congressman Sean Casten from the great state of Illinois.
Thank you, Tiernan. Much to Tiernan's dismay, I will not be rapping at this evening's performance. Tiernan, thank you to LCV for doing this, and thank you all for coming up and stepping up, because I feel like I need to be the guy in the proverbial, in the wisdom of an old friend from Kentucky who liked to say, he said, sometimes your job is to take a piss in the Cheerios. And we need to be honest. This is not the moment to dance in the end zone. We're not in the end zone yet. This is the time to remain hyper-vigilant and to make sure that we don't lose an inch of the hard ground that we've gained and fought for in the Build Back Better plan. I am here in this job because of climate change. I spent 20 years in the clean energy sector, 16 of them as a CEO, building companies, building projects that profitably reduce CO2 emissions, built 80 projects. Every one of them saved people money. Every one of them was at least twice as efficient as the U.S. electric grid. I'm here because I know that the false choice between your morals and your wallets is a total lie. If you can keep your beer cold and your shower hot without burning fossil energy, you don't have to pay for fossil fuel. It's pretty cool, right? You save a lot of money. Every one of my customers is richer today because they are lowering their CO2 emissions as a side perk. I'm also here because I got sick of finding no laws of physics that stood in my way and no laws of economics that stood in my way, but I was too often thwarted by the laws of the United States. And the good news is that there's only one of those sets of laws that you can change. But I'm also here because I got sick of elected officials who claimed to be cut from fine leadership cloth. And when I came here and I said, why don't you do these things that are going to help our economy, that are going to help our society, they said, well, it doesn't poll well. It's just what's scientifically necessary is going to have to be deferred, and you're just going to have to settle for the politically possible. So here we are in this hot FERC summer. More than a century since Svante Arrhenius basically figured out the science of climate change. More than 30 years since Jim Hansen sat up there and said, if you don't act now, you're going to be out of time. Less than a month from when the IPCC report came out and said, yeah, we're basically out of time. Over the last summer, this summer, the West is still on fire. New York is coming out from a flood that started in the Gulf Coast. 67 people died as that storm moved across 8 states. 200 people died from floods in Europe. One in three Americans have faced an extreme weather event this summer that's not supposed to happen that often. 1 in 3 Americans. So here's the question. Do we care? Are we going to step up? We are about to find out, aren't we? Are we going to stop subsidizing the fossil fuel sector so that we can finally unleash the forces of free market capitalism in the name of Ayn Rand? Stop subsidizing fossil fuels, my goodness. Will we unleash the spirit of American innovation and develop all these new technologies here in our backyard? Argonne National Lab is in my own backyard. They're developing this amazing cutting-edge battery technology. Think of the jobs, think of the innovation that's going to come out to create those jobs right here in America. Will we make the investments in renewables and efficiency and electric vehicle chargers and batteries so that every American, regardless of whether or not they can afford that initial investment, benefits from not having to pay for gasoline anymore and not having to pay for electricity anymore because they got the power on their roof? Will we do what's necessary morally to leave a more livable planet for our kids than the ones we inherited from our parents? Will we remind the small fraction of our constituents who represent the fossil fuel sector that 100% of our constituents would like to pay less for energy? Will we acknowledge that when it's partisan to believe in science, just doing more than the other side ain't enough? If we've got to carry all the water, we got to work twice as hard. And you all need to hold us accountable to make sure that we do that. Or will we just decide to kick the can down the road and hope that maybe someday in the future somebody has the jobs we have today and is capable of the leadership that we couldn't find in this moment? Come on, can I get a no? How about a hell no? Can I get a hell no? Thank you. So let's get Senator Smith's clean electricity payment so that we can fully decarbonize our power sector, create nearly 8 million new jobs. Let's get a proper greenhouse gas score. You know, we score, think of all the time and agony we spend saying, how much does this bill cost? How much does it cost? When's the last time somebody said, what's the carbon impact of this bill? Let's score that. Let's get it done. Let's eliminate fossil fuel subsidies and use the savings to pay for all this other good stuff. Let's ramp up that EV charging infrastructure, deliver the transmission. Thank you, Senator Heinrich, who's leading on that, to give every American access to that. Let's not do those things because it's sufficient. Do them because it's the bare minimum, right? As I said at the start, we're not dancing in the end zone because we're not in the end zone yet. But we got one play left on the clock, and the Build Back Better plan, if we pass what we're doing right now with no compromises, might give us another 4 downs. So let's make the most of that. Let's act. It's time to invest. It's time to embrace this moment with the urgency it demands. It's time to stop confusing operating expenses with capital investments. It's time to stop prioritizing the narrow, backward-looking interests of the fossil fuel industry over the universal interests of the American people. In a brighter tomorrow, it is time to lead, and it is time to prove to the American people that all of us up on this stage today deserve the responsibility of this job, and thank you for pushing us. Thank you, Kaine.
Thank you so much, Congressman Casten, and don't worry, we promise we will always push you. We will meet this moment. And now I'm thrilled that we have an incredible lineup of senators who have just joined us from their votes, so I'm going to introduce all of them very briefly together. First, we'll hear from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is a tireless champion for climate action. His presence here speaks volumes to what a huge, must-happen priority this is for Democrats in Congress. We'll also hear from Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who has been talking about climate every week on the Senate floor when that was a lonely thing to do. He is such a champion for bold climate action. We'll also hear from two incredible New Mexico senators, Senator Martin Heinrich, who is working to literally electrify everything. Thank you for that. And also Senator Ben Ray Lujan, who also came over from the House and has been a tireless fighter for conservation, for clean renewable energy, and so much more. Senators, thank you all so much for being here and for your incredible leadership. Let's get this done. And Senator Kaine, the incredible senator from Virginia, who is such an advocate for combating sea level rise and for the connection between climate security and national security. Thank you, Senator Kaine.
Well, thank you, Tiernan, and let me thank the LCV and Climate Power and my colleagues here. You know, we have a band of senators who are fighting day and night for climate change. We have the strongest voice on the Hill in the people behind me. Ben Ray Lujan, Martin Heinrich, Tim Kaine, and Sheldon Whitehouse. They are constantly reminding our whole caucus that the future of our globe, the future of our children, the future of our grandchildren is on our shoulders right now. And we must act, and act big and bold. We've all seen it happen. My home city of New York. We had a record rainfall in Central Park in 1 hour of 3.5 inches. It broke the previous record. Do you know when the previous record occurred? The week before. That's what's happening. And I tell my constituents, as bad as COVID was, and it was horrible, if we don't do something about global warming, starting in a few years, every year will be worse than this past COVID year, and it'll get worse and worse and worse. We have no choice whatsoever. Future generations are going to look back at this generation. Is it the generation that failed to grasp the import of global warming? Or is it the generation that rose to the occasion and saved the globe and made their lives better and made their lives easier? The bottom line for all of us, we can't let this moment pass by. It's our time to act. And I have said over and over again as your majority leader that the Senate will act in a way that's commensurate with the magnitude of the climate crisis by reducing carbon pollution, making our infrastructure more resilient, creating green jobs of the future, and as we move towards climate resiliency, do it with economic justice once and for all, so the people who've been left out in the past are not left out here. Our goal set by President Biden, which we are aiming to equal or even surpass, is that 80% of all our energy has to be clean by 2030. That's better than the standard in most states. And that we have to reduce the country's carbon emissions by 50% by 2030. That is a strong goal. We are doing everything we can to meet it. And two areas before I turn it over to my colleagues. One, we have to have justice and equity. I am committed to the President's Justice 40 commitment. 40% of the overall benefits on climate should flow to disadvantaged communities. So we make investments that put people and justice front and center. And second, something I'm passionate about, is the CCC, the Civilian Climate Corps, which would invigorate a national purpose and create sustaining union jobs, half of them to minority communities, so we'd have a permanent, active climate corps that can deal with the effects of global warming. And it will be there permanently and strongly. It's very, very important. The President put $10 billion in his bill. We put 30. The House is not happy with our big increase. We need you to fight for us on the CCC and fight for the Senate position. So with that, let me turn it over to one of the people who never stops in fighting for the tools I mentioned, preventing carbon from flowing into the atmosphere and doing it with strength, intelligence, and economic justice, the great senior senator from the state of Rhode Island, Sheldon Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you all for being here. It's great to be with such energized colleagues on this question right here and right now, because this, folks, is our moment. How often have you heard it said that this is the worst year in a decade? That this is the worst year in 2 decades? Flip side of that coin, this is the best year in the next decade. This is the best year in the next 2 decades. It is going to get worse before it gets better. And we have a responsibility now, while we don't have fossil fuel funded Republican control in the House or the Senate, and while we have President Biden in the White House, to get this done. If we miss this moment, it is not clear when we will have a second chance. So we have to act as if we have no second chance. This is it. And that's why we need to fight hard. I'm from an ocean state. Rhode Island is the ocean state. Virginia's got a little bit of ocean too. These New Mexicans, they're a little shy on ocean. But if you go back long enough, so things can change big when you mess with Mother Nature, and it's really important that we get this right. I need to protect my coast from sea level rise. I need to protect my fishermen from moving fishers. I need to protect all of us from upheaval around the planet. And to do that, I believe we got to make polluters pay. We have a methane fee that we are already preparing in the Environment Public Works Committee so that they can't just leak the damn stuff any longer for free. It'll cost them. So they'll go out and fix it so the planet will be safer. Yeah, there's the sign. Carbon dioxide. We need to have a polluter fee for carbon dioxide. That will power up every other intervention that we do, and it will drive the whole market to a cleaner future. In fact, it's probably the single most powerful intervention that we have. We're going to go after plastics, so they're out of our oceans. And we're looking at shipping because it can dodge around where it chooses to buy its fuels and get out from under a methane fee and a carbon fee. So let's make the polluters pay. Let's make this moment count. And let's make sure we don't miss this important moment. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Martin Heinrich, who works. Martin and Brian Schatz and I are kind of a trio on this subject. So I love listening to Martin. He wants to electrify everything, including he wants to electrify you right now with his words.
If only that was the part I was good at. But, you know, we need a few engineers in the Congress to actually figure out the path here. Who's ready for climate action now? Who's ready for climate action now? I want to just drive home why this is so personal for me. I mean, I've been working on this since I was a college student, putting together a solar car that we drove across the country, raced against other university teams. But it's a different game now because we spent 30 years not fixing the problem. So I want you to turn around and I want you to look at the Washington Monument and look at the color of the sky. That is the West on fire. We have spent 30 years not fixing this problem. We have an opportunity right now to make right by our children. In my home state, we dodged a bullet this year. The fire season hasn't been too bad because for the first time in 3 years, the rains actually came in the summer. But our sky looks like this too because all of what's burning in California, Arizona, Oregon, and Washington wafts across the West. You can't see the mountains sometimes on the horizon because of the air quality. We have all the tools we need to make this right. Who wants a carbon-free economy? Oh, yeah. Who wants social justice as a result of building that carbon-free economy? For 30 years, people said this is all stuff that's over the horizon. We can't do it. And I am here to tell you we can do it, and we can do it now. We can decarbonize the electric sector. We can supercharge our transportation for zero-emissions transportation. We can begin to fix the industrial sector. We know how to do these things. The challenges, as a mechanical engineer, I will tell you, these challenges are not scientific. These challenges are not the physics. These challenges are that building. It's the politics that's hard, and you're going to help us fix that once and for all. We're going to act now on climate. Next, we have the great senator from the state of Virginia, Tim Kaine.
Hey guys, great to be with you. Climate action now. As Chuck said, and as Sheldon said, and as Martin said, this is our moment when we have a White House with a president who has acknowledged the existential threat of climate change, and we have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House. We have to act now. And if we act now, it can and will get better. I'm going to prove it to you, because we've got history in this country on important environmental issues that when Congress acts, it gets better. I was canoeing on the James River yesterday. The James River is very affected by climate. Virginia is very affected by sea level rise. And as I'm out on the James River yesterday, I saw two bald eagles. One, the mature bald eagle with the beautiful white head and tail feathers, and one, a juvenile. The white coloring hadn't come in yet, probably about 3 years old. These magnificent birds, our national bird. At the time of the Revolutionary War, there were 100,000 nesting pairs of bald eagles in North America, and a lot of juveniles and unattached, so it was probably about 500,000 bald eagles. By 1962, the number of bald eagles in the lower 48 was down to 450 pairs. From 500,000 nesting pairs down to just 450 pairs. Congress listed the bald eagle as an endangered species under the Endangered Species Act. Congress, with a Republican administration, put in place the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA banned DDT, which was causing the eggs of eagles to be premature and to crack during incubation. Congress passed the Clean Water Act 50 years ago next year, 1972. And America's symbol, the bald eagle, has fought back. That's why I saw two yesterday. Now in the United States, the bald eagle population has quadrupled in the last 12 years. There's 370,000 nesting pairs of bald eagles in the United States now. There's 300 just on the James River, 4,000 in the Chesapeake region. This was a species we were known for that had been driven down to nearly extinct. But when Congress took action that was bipartisan, action under President Nixon, we've saved this species, and it's not the only one. Atlantic sturgeon, we've saved that from near extinction. So when Congress has the guts to act, prodded by you, we know populations will come back. We know the environment will improve. Our enemy is not just climate change, as Martin said. We have had a fossil fuel controlled Congress that has fought tooth and nail against what we need to do to defeat climate change and go back to a low and then no carbon economy. This is our moment to take this place back for our citizens and for our environment, and not let fossil fuel lobbyists control it. And that's what this moment is about, and that's why I'm so proud to be here. And now I want to hand it to a great friend who is a super advocate on environmental causes, as a member of the House from New Mexico for many years, who has joined us in the Senate, makes a huge mark in so many areas, my friend Ben Ray Lujan.
All right, everyone, good to see you today. Climate action now? You're still with us. I wanted to make sure you could see that I was from New Mexico, so I brought the grandest bolo that I have for this event. This is what our skies are supposed to look like. This beautiful, brilliant blue, this turquoise canopy that awaits you every day. Those skies that inspired Georgia O'Keeffe and so many other artists to our beautiful soils across New Mexico. As Senator Heinrich just reminded us, look at the sun. Look at the sky. If you're able to catch it. The warnings are all around us. And look, this is not just about doing what's right for our health and for the health of Mother Earth. Under President Obama, and yes, even under President Trump, the Department of Defense listed the greatest threat to our national security, not just in the United States, but around the world, as the climate crisis. Famine and wars that will only get worse if we don't act, not just here in the United States, but with our partners around the world. Those partners that came together in Paris just a few years ago. Leaders like you, young voices across America that have been driving this conversation and holding everyone accountable to this moment. Getting to 80% clean electricity is just the start. And that's why I want to thank Senator Tina Smith. I had the honor of working on that legislation with her when I was in the House, and now working with all my Senate colleagues to get it across the finish line. Reducing emissions in every corner of America. And something that I am so passionate about that is included here as a priority of all of my Democratic colleagues in the House and in the Senate, and of President Biden and Vice President Harris. Those environmental injustices, the racial injustice of communities of color bearing the brunt, in black communities, in brown communities, in Native American communities where asthma and other chronic health conditions are higher than anywhere else in America. When you go and see those smokestacks, you wonder what communities they are in. They're in black communities, in Hispanic communities, and in Native American communities. Those methane emissions that Senator Whitehouse and Senator Heinrich and Kaine have been talking about, and making sure we're going to hold these folks accountable. We have the worst methane emissions of any state in New Mexico. We went out to the Navajo Nation to go work on some of the other challenges that are facing us, abandoned oil and gas wells. And when you go out there, you can smell it. You can smell that methane all around you. But because of many advocates and friends that are here today and engineers like Senator Heinrich, there's now technology where you can see it. And when you look through these cameras and through this technology, you're able to see these plumes larger than cities passing before your eyes. The time is now. We have to act. And I know we can get this done. We need your voices, though, in the House, in the Senate, in every corner of America. So even for those of you that can't be here today, for every one of you that attended rallies, that knocked on doors, that made phone calls, some of you that are new voters, some of you that are not yet old enough to vote, but you are the voice that is going to demand action, and with your help, we will get this done in America now. Thank you so much for having us.
That's right, Senator Lujan. We will get this done. Thank you all so much, Senator Lujan, Senator Whitehouse, Senator Kaine, Senator Heinrich. We are, of course, thrilled to be joined also by Majority Leader Schumer. And also we did have women senators, Senator Smith and Senator Baldwin, for people who tuned in late, along with Congressman Casten and Chairman DeFazio. Thank you all for your inspiration, for your tireless leadership. We are going to get this done. For people who have been following along online and would like to get more involved, you can text code RED to 434-266-8464 on behalf of LCV, Climate Power, the Climate Action Campaign, and everyone around the country who is all in to make transformational progress on climate, jobs, and justice. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.